Perfect. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the ninth session of Design Tutorials. Today, we will be seeing about retouching and image blending, like how to make composites of two different images and place one image on the top of the other so that it looks like one image and doesn't look like it has been edited and it doesn't look like fake, right? So, we will be discussing about different blending modes and how to I would say how to alter the properties of image so that it should match with the background. Yeah, that will be pretty much it. And by the end of this week, we will be like on Sunday, we have the tutorial of how to make your own caricature. So it's going to be an interesting one, right? So let's get started with today. Like, I'm not sure really if I would be getting time for the retouching stuff, but let's start with the image blending only first. So right now I have my Photoshop document. So I have these two layers, okay, we will be discussing them later. So first of all, let's do one thing. So suppose you are making a poster, right, and you have set some background of this dark bluish color, right? So now what you want is you want some kind of a pattern on this blue background, right? Because it looks like plain and you have some heading and stuff, you have some logos. So you want to add some pattern to this background. So what you do is you go to Google and you search simple patterns. Right? Okay, let me just search simple background and what can I get is so suppose I have got this. So now you can see that this image which I have just imported it has a black background and it has some chat bubble kind of shapes, right? But the original background which we had is of blue. So what one thing that so I'm just doing some quick editing. So now we have this. Now what we do is suppose we just lock this layer because we don't want to select it again and again, and we just increase its size and we just place it here. But as you can see, it isn't looking good, right? So what we have here is you see this normal option. If you click on this drop down, you have different kind of options, right? And as you can see that when I'm hovering the mouse over such options, the image is getting like it is being displayed differently. So these are the blending modes. That means that this particular layer blends with the layer beneath it. So these two layers, how do they blend exactly? Normal means they are just placed on the top of each other, right? So now as I choose darken, so what does darken do is that it only displays the darker color between both the images. So whatever area is darker, that will be displayed, right? So as we see that these are very light colors, right? Whereas the background is dark. So when I choose dark, only the okay, just wait a minute. Yes. So what is darkening do is darkening is selecting this image's colors which are darker than this color, like or the layer beneath it. Whatever pixels are darker in this layer will have the color, right? Multiply simply multiplies both the colors. So we have different blending modes here, and as you can see, lighten just displays everything that has the light color. Screen gives a kind of, I would say, a transparent kind of effect to the image. And if you would see for the subtract, it subtracts the color, right? It picks up the extrude of the both the images, like both the pixels of the above and below, and it just subtracts their extrude, and whatever the value comes, it shows that color. So as right now they both are almost blue, so we can see we have the black here, right? So I would just a minute, if I just choose some different image to show you more clearly. So right now I have this image. It has a almost blue background and it has this green pattern. And as for this layer, I will just make it pink. Okay, so now we have this situation. We need to apply this pattern to this pink background. So what I do is I select this layer and I'll hover over through these blending modes, and as you can see with each blending mode it is being differently. So now we can see that lighten is working perfectly. Why? Because what does lighten do? Lighten select the light color of between both the layers. So as we can see in this layer, we have the blue thing in the background, right? And these light greenish things which were there. If I just choose normal, these light greenish things as the pattern, and we have this pink on the background layer. So when we choose lighten, what it does is it selects the light color. That means in the areas which where there was blue, and it compares between that bluish color, the dark bluish color, and the pink color. So between those, the pink is the light one, so it is displaying me the pink. Whereas in the pattern, which was of light greenish color, that color is lighter in shade than the pink color. So it is displaying me that color. So whatever is light in color of both the layers gets displayed. That is what lightens do. Similarly, what darkens do is it simply displays what is darken of these two. Multiply, like I'm not really sure how to put it in words about the multiply. So as you can see, what the screen does is it gives a translucent, not transparent, but a translucent kind of effect to the image of whose blending mode we are changing. And if we do subtract in here, you can see it is giving me pink. So you can have these different options from these blending modes and choose whichever is working good with your design and is giving you the desired output, and then you can choose among these. So moving over to the next thing, we have this layer of mountains, right? And we have a tourist here. I've already cut it out just a little bit. So this was the actual photo of the tourist, right? And just I have used the remove background option already built in the Photoshop to remove its background, and it has done pretty good work, but not in this part of the image. So I'll have to do it manually. So I'm just decreasing the hardness of the brush and removing some white areas from his hair. I'm using the layer masks as of now so that I can work non-destructively and I can easily regain these parts in future if I want to, right? It looks better than the previous one, right? We had just made some modifications. So now if you see clearly, like this person and this image, they are not blending that well, right? It was only half, right? So we can't do anything. So if I just reduce its size a little bit, and you can see we have this book missing here. So let me just bring back the book, which the Photoshop has lost. Right, so now we have the book and we can just reduce this further as well because it was not visible because of the background of the mountains, right? So just to speed up the process, let me just choose a bigger brush and like I'm not focusing on the detail of the cutting right now, that you guys can focus on your own, but just to so now it looks pretty much good, right? But still if you would clearly see that these are not exactly matching. So what you have to say is that the background image, if you see it, it doesn't have that much amount of light or brightness, right? But our subject here, this has a lot of lighted areas in this part of the image, right? So what I'll do is I select this subject and I apply a brightness and contrast adjustment layer on this, and I apply this clipping mask. So what do the clipping mask mean, as we have already learned in our previous tutorial, that it will apply the effect only to this layer, like only to the layer beneath it. So I'll just, so if you can see, if I change the brightness right now, the whole image is changing. But if I just clip it, only the subject is changing, right? So what we need to do is, we just need to have its, and if I just, yes, so the I have what I have done is I have reduced the brightness and I have reduced the contrast, both of them, right? Yeah. So this looks more better. Now what we need to do is that we need to match colors. Like right now, it seems as if the colors are matching, right? But sometimes what happens is that your front image or your subject is very much in sunny weather or the sunny environment, like the images have very much yellow color in them. But what if your background has a little more of blue or more of coldness in its weather, right? So what you can do is you can simply select the image, then you can go to curves adjustment layer. So what are curves, if you would see, like as we selected the clipping mask earlier, so it is already being applied right now as well. So curves are similar to brightness and contrast, I would say. Like you can simply change the level of this curve and you see the image is changing. So what it does is it plays with the brightness and contrast at the same time, right? So these are the blacks of the image and these are the whites of the image. So if I'll just delete this layer, if I just delete this curves and adjustment layer and I apply it again so that it starts by the default values, right? So these are the whites of the image. So what I'm doing right now is I'm decreasing the whites. So as you can see, it is decreasing the brightness of the image and now it has made it completely black. So on the right hand side we have the whites of the image, and on the left side we have the blacks of the image. So if I'll just, you see, the whole image is white now. So this is a very basic thing about scrolls, that on the left there are white, black and white, and then you can simply change their angles, right? So what I'm doing is, like, I am making the whites towards the black, right? So it's all getting white, right? So this is a part of advanced tutorial, but today what we will be doing is that we will be selecting these three eyedroppers. So I'll just delete this again so that we start with the default values. So I'll make one more curve adjustment here. And right now we have these three eyedropper tools, as you can see. The topmost is filled with black, the middle one with gray, and the bottom one with white. Right. So let's just start with black. I'm double clicking on this eyedropper tool, and what it displays me a color picker. Target shadow color. That means that the target color of the shadow. So what we need to do is we need to select the darkest color in the background, right? The darkest color in the background. Earlier it was selected as black, that was the default. But right now what we need, as we are blending these two images, what we need to do is we need to select the darkest color in the background. So if you would see, we have the darkest color around this part of the image. Right now it's getting selected white. Why? Because we have this mask selected here. Now I have this layer selected here, and now I'll just first zoom it in, and then I will double click it again, and then I can choose. Okay, wait a minute. Why isn't it working? Right. So let's just select all layers. Yes, so now it's working, right? So you need to select all the layers, because earlier it was only selecting the layer beneath it, right? So this seems to be the darkest color of the background image. Or if I'll just zoom it in, and now I'll select again, this is the darkest color in the background image. Do I want to save it as default? No, I don't want to save it as default. And now if I see the white part, for the white part, I think, what is the brightest white here? Like, this seems to be the brightest white. Or can we know, this is not the brightest, certainly. Let's just go with this one, right? And then I don't want to save it as default. And then we have the gray. So about the gray, I would say that this part certainly looks gray, right? So I'll just select a little bit of lighter one, then I hit OK. And now what we need to do is we need to select the corresponding parts of the our subject, right? So with this black dropper, I will select the darkest part of my foreground image. And with this white, let's just select this spectacles. And with the gray, I guess is, uh, yes, this looks good, right? So now if you will see, this was our actual subject which we had, and this is after the curves layer, and this is after the brightness layer. right? So you can see the difference. uh, Like this has much of brightness, and this is much more in reddish kind of color, matching with the background of the image. So let's see what more we can do with this. So what I'll do is I'll select the adjustment icon again, and I'll select color lookup, and we have these options in our color lookup. So let's just select crisp winter kind of stuff, and let's apply it to both the background and the foreground. And we will, okay, so now all the effects are being applied to that, right? So we don't want that obviously. So let's just press Control Shift Alt E so that we have this one single image, right? So as of now, so we have this image made, right? So now what we will do is we will select the color and lookup, and now we can select something like moonlight perhaps, so that it becomes dark. And regarding its properties, as we have seen the blending modes, so let's try some different blending modes, right? Like lighten or the screen, color dodge is giving it a kind of high contrast effect, right? So you can choose whatever looks good to you. Right now, I would say let's go with this difference, and I'll just decrease its opacity. So this was our actual image, and I'm now just increasing the opacity. The amount of filter I want to apply to it, right? So this looks good. Yeah. So what we had in actual was we had, let me just apply that little mask to it. So we had this photograph, right? And we had our tourist, which looked like this. So this was our tourist and this was our photograph, and we made this out of that, right? So it looks certainly good, and you can't even say that, right, this tourist was not in this photograph. So that is how you blend the two images. You need to cut out the image, and then you should analyze it. Like, what is the exactly difference between your foreground and the background image? Like, what about the brightness? What about the contrast? What about the hue? What about the saturation? It is it really highly saturated and my background is in black and white stuff, or like it has very light colors? What is the contrast of my image? It is very high contrast, or is it very low contrast? So according to that, you have to change the like aspects of your background and the foreground image, and then you can choose that curves and adjustment layer to change its colors a little bit. Or you can even simply, like, what you can do is, let me just show you. Like, if you have this thing, and if you would just go to hue saturation, right? So I have this hue saturation and lightness, and right now it's in master mode. So we have this reds, yellow, greens, and the magenta. So let's just see what does master do. Now, as you would, like, as and now I would slide this slider, you would see this color will get changed, right? So as you can see, the hue, the hue of the image is getting changed. So, like, this is a complicated way of working with like composites, but at Curves and adjustment layer sorted is perfectly good, right? So if I'll just increase the saturation, as you can see, the saturation is slightly increased and all the colors are looking very much bright. And maybe this light colors go with the background. So if I'll just on these, and now you can judge better, right, that this goes with this. And about the lightness, you can choose such lightness. You can easily manage the different channels as well. So what if you want to change only the reds or the greens of the image? So as is backpack is green somewhat, so if I'll just choose green, and if I'll just change my hue or the saturation, as you can see, if I'm changing my saturation, the green part of the images is getting highlighted, or maybe the, I would say, shadow, or sorry, the saturation is getting increased too much. And if I increase the lightness as well, so as you can see, the green is being lit. So let's just make both of them to 0 and make this 0 as well. So this has also made quite a lot of difference, right? So we have come from here to here, right? So in this way, you can simply change a background in your photograph and apply some new background, and you can easily analyze the photograph, and then you can see if you want to change the brightness or the contrast or the hue or the saturation or the curves, whatever you wish to, right? So we might have a one more session on this topic, right, on each of the blending modes, or how to do some more advanced compositing, and how to add shadows and stuff to the objects. Let's plan it for the next series, right? So that was pretty much it for today. Let's see you guys on Wednesday with our next tutorial, which is the power of Adobe XD, I guess. Let me just confirm once. Okay, where's the schedule? No, it is the pen tool. Okay, that will be an interesting one. After pen tool, we have the power of Adobe XD. So let's see the pen tool, right? It's really interesting. So I'll just end this session here. Let's see you guys on Wednesday.